Hello yarn tubers, welcome back to Wanderlust Crochet with Dana and Jack. I was asked last night in a live to show this, and I'm like, well, there's 50 million, videos out there showing, chainless foundations. Well, there's a little bit difference in what I'm showing here. And it finally dawned on me. So in between these corner stitches, there are supposed to be 28 stitches. And this is a square that I'm going to be joining with other squares with the same count of 28 stitches. Well, what do we usually do? Usually we slip stitch into that first stitch. Focus, please. But what that'll do is make it look like there's 29 stitches, because that slip stitch, well, it's what Mikey calls a false stitch. So I'm going to pull that out, and I have cut my yarn, and I'm going to pull it through the last single crochet. Let me see what I'm doing here of this row. Just gently. I got a little fuzz there. Then I am going to put my hook away, get my yarn needle. I'm using a much smaller yarn needle for this project. And many of us have seen an invisible join, and normally you would do that from right, into that first stitch. Well, because the join actually makes what looks like an extra stitch, I go to instead of the first stitch, focus please, instead of the first stitch of the, it's focusing on the back there. Instead of going to the first stitch of the row, I'm going to the second, and I'm going from back to front. Come on, focus. Underneath. I gotta see what I'm doing. 1, 2, there. From back to front, underneath the second stitch of the row. And the reason is, when I make sure that back loop and this front loop, I gotta tap this. Tap, hello. When I tighten up a little bit on the back loop and the front loop, and then I go into this stitch that it came out of, I'm basically covering up the top of the first stitch, and I go down a little bit in the back to kind of anchor it. But do you see how that, when I tighten that up, it doesn't look any different than the rest of the stitches? And those loops on top, I now have a perfect count of 28 to work into when I go to put this together with another. Took me 4 minutes to try to do this because of the poor focus. But you see that? Now you can't tell where I did the invisible join. Again, when you decide which stitch, which I did the second one, you go from back to front underneath the top loops, and then you go down through the center of the original stitch you just came out of, and I go down the back to anchor it. So I hope that helps somebody. Yeah, my first thought was, there's 50 million videos out there on an invisible join, but I do it when it's appropriate to the second loop, of the round rather than the first, so that I don't have an extra false stitch, so that I only have the count of 28 from corner to corner. Hope that helps. Love you guys. Bye.